Attendance list going around. Make sure you mark yourself here. I actually only want to take a little bit of your time talking about a couple things because I want as much time as possible for those of you who signed up for your crime-centered presentation to have time to at least start that bad boy, and then I'll plop myself down somewhere. If you still have to present something to me, today's a good day to do that. Everyone could be working on a Kia, which I forgot to put on Kia yesterday. Sorry. It's there now, Chapter 8. And your third article summary is something everyone can work on. That's assuming you've done your second article summary and your first article summary. Which for some of you is not true. That's okay. No judgments. Yes, dear.
Do you have like
Little classroom. Yep. Okay. Allow me to give you one example, and then I would like you at your table to think of one or two other examples of something called social control conflict. Warning. The next test, the test on this unit crime, is a bit of a doozy. I've heard from previous classes, this is the kind of the tough one, even if it's open note. It's got a lot of ideas, like for example, this one, social control conflict. Let me give you an example, and then let's define it, and then you at your table see if you can come up with another example. Social control conflict as exemplified by this chart, which shows 18 to 20-year-olds who drink, compared to 21 to 24-year-olds, on and on and on and on. And the chart shows that the younger you are, the more dependent on alcohol you are based on this chart. And that it basically drops with a little bit of an anomaly here. It basically drops with age. I don't know if I'm shocking any of you, but consumption of alcohol under age 21 outside of a family setting is illegal. Why do you do something that violates the norms of society? Why do you do that? I'm just throwing this out there. Anyone have any suggestions? Why do people who are not supposed to consume alcohol engage in that behavior? It violates the norms of society. Why do you do it? Star. You allege it's fun. Okay. Any other ideas? Go ahead. Very good. We're going to play with that idea later. An attempt to reject society. Anybody else? Here, let me lead you to the promised land based on yesterday's discussion. Why might you do that? Go ahead. Very good. Because that's the sociological answer. The reason people engage in this behavior, even though it violates the norms of one group you're in, is it because it fits the norms of another group you're in. Peer group. So the rules that dictate norms in one group do not apply in another group, but you are all part of both groups. You're part of this Venn diagram circle and this Venn diagram circle. This circle says, go ahead, do it. It's fun, fit in. This circle says, do not do it. It's illegal, and you're part of both. So what do? What is your experience? When you find yourself experiencing that, you are experiencing social control conflict. It's when one group you're in says do it, and another group you're in says do not do it. That is social control conflict. So the definition I have right here, sometimes government says do not do something, but your peers say go ahead. You're part of both groups. You want to be part of both groups, and so you have a decision to make. No matter what decision you make, you're violating the norms of one of the groups you're in. If you decide to go along with the law, your friends say, loser. If you go ahead and engage in that illegal behavior, let's just say you get caught Now you have a ticket. Now you're kicked off the hockey team, whatever. Okay. In either case, there are potential consequences. Okay. Now I've given you one. I've given you an example, consumption of alcohol. Can you come up with another example where there's a decision to make, and no matter what decision, you're violating the norms of one of the groups that you're in? And a simplistic one is your peers versus the law. That's an easy one. Could there be another one? How about just a little challenge here? Can you think of one where your family says A, but the school says B, and now you're in a dilemma? Or your family says A, but your friends say B, or your family says A, but the law says B. Those are fun to kind of think about. Okay, 1 minute at your table. Can you come up with another example of social control conflict? Go. You can chat.
Other people said, well, you don't want to be it's like it's not a fit in. Losing one of them, yeah, like or you're getting
Okay, finishing up. Anyone got one? Good one. Pick the best one at your table.
And then, of course,
I actually just heard one, and I had not thought of it, but Ian said it. Maybe I heard things, but I had the same experience. When I was young, back when I was young, baby seats were not a thing. My brother and I would have all-star wrestling matches in the back of the car on our way to church. And I would take his head, and I would wait for the crowd. Do it, should I? And my brother's like, no! And then I'd smash his head into the turnbuckle. Should I do it? Yeah! And then suddenly he'd have a chair. And this is in the back of the car on the way to church. But I do remember this. On our way home, my dad would always let me drive once we got to the dirt road. And I was like 10. That violates the law, but my dad totally fine with it. Now, I did not have a dilemma at that moment. I was like, but I don't know, Dad, this violates the law. I was like, sweet, let me drive. But that's an example of social control conflict. No matter what decision I made, I was violating the norms of one of the circles that I belong to. Okay, there's another one. Anyone have another one? Go ahead. Nice and loud so everybody can hear.
For religion, like abortion, how like some religions say you shouldn't like do it and like they don't believe it. But if you're a stranger, it's like if we believe in it, it's kind of like a cop or like.
What a wonderful example. Great example. Abortion, right? Legal in our society, but not acceptable in some of your religious beliefs. Fantastic example. Go ahead. Very good, right? So the church you belong to says, no, your dad has differing opinions. That is social control conflict. Excellent. Anybody else? Good. Look. You okay? One more time.
Obviously, the government is not going to want kids to be looking at that, but like the internet and entertainment places are like, yeah, we're making money.
Oh, okay. You know what? There's actually a couple different ways you can go with that because actually it's legal. I mean, as long as you're old enough, it's legal. But I mean, not to be creepy, but I think all of us would be horrified to walk in and our dad's watching that, right? It violates the norms of your family, but it is legal. Right. Does anyone not understand the concept? One more slide and then we're done. This slide shows examples of something that we talked about yesterday. I told you yesterday that conformity is something that our society actually values. I know the commercials say, break the lines and carve your own path, but imagine our military based on that idea. What you're looking at here are harmful examples of when people simply obeyed. And so I seem to be conflicting what I said yesterday. And by the way, you're going to hear that a lot over the next 3 weeks. I'm going to be saying something one day, and the very next day I'm going to say the opposite. And you're going to be lost unless you kind of, this unit demands you to think a little bit. Does anyone know what we're looking at? I know some of you in the back might not be able to see it real well. Go ahead.
Is this the Holocaust?
Right. These are pictures of the Holocaust. Can anyone understand why I'm showing you pictures of the Holocaust as an example of when obedience ended up being a harmful practice? Anyone see the connection here? Go ahead.
Because a lot of people in Germany sort of blindly followed the Nazis. It wasn't a good time for other people.
Okay, you started off well, and then you kind of died off there. You said a lot of people in Germany, it wasn't a good time.
No, a lot of people in Germany followed the Nazis. Like blindly.
Against their will?
No, like kind of against their will, but a lot of them sort of went along with it.
Okay, very good. Go ahead. Perfect.
Germans saw the Nazi views and they followed them even though they didn't really agree with them, and they usually use them.
Okay, let me play with that one in a bit here. Go ahead.
As the Nazis started to gain more presence, more power, it was sort of more of a peer pressure. Like you had to listen to them, even if you didn't agree to them, because if you were viewed as like you don't agree with them, you were kind of shunned.
Okay, good. I think all three of you bring up powerful points. That's exactly right. I do want to challenge this idea, though, that the Nazis took over, so the Germans that most Germans didn't want to go along with it. Oh, baloney. That is baloney. They bought it. Hook, line, sinker. They believed in what they were doing. Now, were there some who didn't? Sure. But this notion that Hitler had the entire German nation blindfolded and controlling their brains. No. Hitler was the result, not the cause. There were things in Germany that were in motion which resulted in Hitler. He didn't start that train. He was the result of it. Nevertheless, this is my last point and then we're done. At the end of the war, as many of you probably know, there were a series of trials called the Nuremberg trials. And the chief defense, the Germans that were on trial argued two things, which are kind of interesting. The first thing they argued that how can we be accused of breaking the law when we legalized what we were doing within our country? We legalized it. You might not like it, but it was legal in our circle. How can you say that we were breaking the law? What law? Our law said legal. You see, they created their own Venn diagram. They created their own norms. And they said within our circle, what we're doing is legal. Now, the response was no. No, you don't just get to draw your own circle and say, yep, it's legal here. No, too bad. And then the second thing that the Germans on trial argued was we were ordered to do this. I was ordered to open the door and put those Jews in there and shut the door. And if I said, sir, this is wrong, I would have been in that room. And I didn't want to go in that room, so I obeyed. I blindly obeyed. And any of you have the military in your future? Maybe? Let's say you find yourself in some foreign land and your commanding officer says, we need to find all the members of ISIS. I want you to go into that village over there and shoot everybody. We'll guaranteed get the ISIS people. Gives you an order. Do you have to say yes, sir, right away, sir?
I mean,
Would you expound?
No, because if you do this, they can't kill you. So you would get court-martialed, but in your defense, you could tell your CO told you to do something that was a war crime, and then he would get court-martialed.
Very good. You are exactly right. You as an American soldier are obligated to disobey that order. You are obligated to ignore an immoral order. Now that sort of puts you on the spot, doesn't it? Because you have to know what you're telling me, sir, is wrong. And you have to disobey it. Now, at that moment, if you say, I'm not doing that, sir, you're probably going to make him mad, and then you're going to be in trouble. But later on, hopefully, you'll be exonerated. By the way, I'm bringing this up because this happened. This happened in Vietnam. A guy by the name of William Calley ordered his men to shoot all the Vietnamese in this one village. Shoot them all. Because we don't know who the Viet Cong are and who aren't. But I guarantee if we shoot everybody, we'll get the Viet Cong, which is logical in a sad way. It's logical. And they did. They obeyed him. They shot and killed something like 500 villagers and would have kept going if this one American pilot flying over in his helicopter, the main unit of transport in Vietnam was the helicopter, right? He saw what was going on, landed his helicopter between the American shooting and the Vietnamese victims. So now, if you're going to keep shooting, you're going to shoot me, the pilot of this helicopter. So they stopped shooting, right? Now, is he a hero? I mean, that's your opinion, but that's how a lot of people viewed him as a hero. Okay. Any questions? Go ahead.
okay, so that first point you made, like what the Nazis argued,
That what they were doing was legal within their circle.
Yeah, when they invaded other countries and did the exact same thing, couldn't the counter argument be, but this isn't your country?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. But they would argue, yes, it is. We took it over. Right? All shades of gray here, right? Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions before we let you go? All right. Laptops are right over there. I'll set up shop somewhere. If you want to present to me, that's awesome. Everyone has something to do. Okay. The rest of the hour is all yours. We're done at 1:30, so we have 15 minutes.
Are your notes already live? Okay. I want to get them.